Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to our buddy read of Mr. Scarborough's Family by Anthony Trollope. Oop, with my bookmark in the way. We have been down at, in the countryside, uh, dealing with poor Harry Ainsley, who is suffering from the rumor mongering of Augustus Scarborough. It's turned his uncle against him, it's turned a lot of his neighbors and friends against him, and looks to be blighting his life in a broader sense, in a material sense as well, since his uncle has decided to cut him out of future prospects. No more inheriting the property. His uncle has gone a courting to find a wife that will give him an heir, so that Harry will be cut out completely. He'll have nothing. He's never been trained for a profession. He has no source of income. Uh, so some aspects are looking pretty bleak for Harry. He can be moved to moments of joy only by the steadfast adoration of Florence Mountjoy, who is his beloved, but who has been removed from England by her overprotective mother, specifically because Harry is on the scene and she doesn't like him. She didn't like him before. She didn't like what she perceived as his insolence, but now she especially doesn't like him because there are all these rumors flying around about him and what he did to Mountjoy Scarborough. Rumors spread by Augustus Scarborough. So we've known that all along, that poor Florence Mountjoy, Flomo, is off in Brussels uh, with her mother at the home of her uncle. Uh, but we haven't learned anything about her. We haven't revisited her. The story has been wandering elsewhere, down to Tretton Park and then to Buston. And now we are going to move back to Brussels for chapter 30 and find out what's going on with Florence. Now, we're going to have to deal with a little bit of legerdemain here because it's Florence Mountjoy, it's Mrs. Mountjoy, her mother, it's Sir Mountjoy, and it's Lady Mountjoy, and that's far too many Mountjoys. So we will. The narrative itself takes a little bit of precaution in this regard by referring to her uncle as Sir Magnus, so we will call him that. Lady Mountjoy we will call Lady M, and her mother we will call Mama Mountjoy, and she will just be Florence, so we should be fine. This is a chapter called Persecution. In the meantime, Florence Mountjoy was not passing her time pleasantly at Brussels. Various troubles there attended her. All her friends around her were opposed to her marriage to Harry Ainsley. Harry Ainsley had become a very unsavory word in the mouths of Sir Magnus and the British Embassy generally. Mrs. Mountjoy told her grief to her brother-in-law, who thoroughly took her part, and did so also very strongly Lady Mountjoy. It got to be so generally understood that Harry was a bad man. Such was the name that was attached to him, and the belief so conveyed was so thoroughly entertained by them all. Sir Magnus had written to friends in London, and the friends in London bore out the reports that were so conveyed. The story of the midnight quarrel was told in a manner very prejudicial to poor Harry, and both Sir Magnus and his wife saw the necessity of preserving their niece from anything so evil as such a marriage. But Florence was very firm, and was considered to be very obstinate. To her mother she was obstinate but affectionate. To Sir Magnus she was obstinate and in some degree respectful. But to Lady Mountjoy she was neither affectionate nor respectful. She took a great dislike to Lady Mountjoy, who endeavoured to domineer, and who, by the assistance of the two others, was in fact tyrannical. And you're living in her home. It was her opinion that the girl should be compelled to abandon the man, and Mrs. Mountjoy found herself constrained to follow this advice. She did love her daughter, who was her only child. The main interest of her life was centered on her daughter. Her only remaining ambition rested on her daughter's marriage. She had long reveled in anticipation of being the mother-in-law of the owner of Tretton Park, because Florence has for a long time been thought, at least by her mother, to be promised to Mountjoy Scarborough. And that's not going to happen now, because Mr. Scarborough has declared to the world that Mountjoy is illegitimate and will never inherit Tretton Park. She had been very proud of her daughter's beauty. Then had come the first blow, when Harry Ainsley had come to Montpelier Place and had been welcomed by Florence. Mrs. Mountjoy had seen it all along before Florence had been aware of it. And the first coming of Harry had been long before the absolute disgrace of Captain Scarborough. At any rate, before the tidings of that disgrace had reached Cheltenham. Mrs. Mountjoy had been still able to dream of Tretton Park after the Jews had got their fingers on it, even after the Jews had been forced to relinquish their hold. It can hardly be said that up to this very time Mrs. Mountjoy had lost all hope in her nephew, thinking that as the property had been entailed, some portion of it must ultimately belong to him. She still can't let go of it. It's not like if Montjoy Scarborough had inherited Tretton Park, it's not like the Jews, in this case meaning the moneylenders, would be paid a certain amount and then they would go away. The amounts are staggering. They would swallow the estate, as Mr. Scarborough put it. She had heard that Augustus was to have it, and her desires had vacillated between the two. Then Harry had positively declared himself, and Augustus had given her to understand how wretched, how mean, how wicked had been Harry's conduct, and he fully explained to her that Harry would be penniless. She had indeed been aware that Buston, quite a trifling thing compared to Tretton, was to belong to him. But entails were nothing nowadays. Thanks to Mr. Scarborough, yes. It was part of the radical abomination to which England was being subjected. Not even Buston was now to belong to Harry Ainsley. The small income which he had received from his uncle was stopped. He was reduced to live upon his fellowship, which stopped if he married. She even despised him because he was a fellow of a college. She had looked for a husband for her daughter so much higher than any college could produce. It was not from any lack of motherly love that she was opposed to Florence, but from any innate cruelty that she handed her daughter over to the tender mercies of Lady Montjoy. Oh, if you can say that, Tony, but it's still pretty cruel. And since she had been at Brussels, there had come up further hopes. Another mode had shown itself open to escaping Harry Ainsley, who was, of all catastrophes, the most dreaded and hated. Mr. Anderson, the second secretary of the legation, he whose business it was to ride about the boulevard with Sir Magnus, had now declared himself in form. In other words, he's expressed his formal desire to marry Florence. Trollope is very skillfully, very quickly, bringing us all up to speed on all of this, since this came out serialized, and it would have been weeks since you read any of this. Never saw a fellow so bowled over, said Sir Magnus, by which he had intended to signify that Mr. Anderson was now truly in love. I've seen him spoony a dozen times, Sir Magnus had said confidentially to his sister-in-law, but he has never gone to this length. He has asked a lot of girls to have him, but he has always been off it again before the week was over. He has written to his mother now. And Mr. Anderson showed his love by very unmistakable signs. Sir Magnus, too, and Lady Montjoy were evidently on the same side of Mr. Anderson. Sir Magnus thought there was no longer any good in waiting for his nephew, the captain, or that other nephew, Augustus. He did not entertain very high idea. Sir Magnus had corresponded lately with Augustus and was certainly not on his side. So he's not waiting for the nephews anymore. He wants another arrangement for Florence. But he so painted Mr. Anderson's prospects in life, as did also Lady Montjoy, as to make it appear as if Florence could put up with young Anderson, she should do very well for herself. Because he's the second son of someone, and his older brother is a little weird, may not live, so he may inherit the property. He's sure to become a baronet one of these days, you know, said Sir Magnus. I don't think that would go very far with Florence, said her mother. But it ought. Look about in the world, and you'll see that it does go a long way. He'll be the 5th baronet. But his elder brother is alive. Oh, the queerest fellow you ever saw in your born days, and his life is not worth a year's purchase. He's got some infernal disease, nostalgia, or what you call it, which never leaves him a moment's peace. And then he drinks nothing but milk. Sure to go off. Cocksure. He drinks nothing but milk. Can't help but remind us, as I'm reading Nero Wolfe at the moment, I can't help but think about Archie Goodwin, whose favorite drink is milk. But what is this boy? What is this man suffering from? What is the nostalgia that could carry him off at any moment? I shouldn't like Florence to count upon that. And then Hugh Anderson, the fellow here, is very well off as it is. He has £400 a year here and another £500 of his own. Florence has, or will have, £400 of her own. I should call them deuced rich. I should, indeed, as beginners. She could have her pair of ponies here, and what more would she want? Okay, so Mr. Anderson, in addition to being perhaps a likely heir to a baronetcy, also has money of his own. A payment from the embassy and also money of his own. And keep in mind, Florence will have money, a large amount of money. These arguments did go very far with Mrs. Montjoy, the furthest because, in her estimation, Sir Magnus was a great man. He was the greatest Englishman at any rate in Brussels, and where should she go for advice but to an Englishman? And she did not know that Sir Magnus had succeeded in borrowing a considerable sum of money from his second secretary of the legation. So not only has Sir Magnus borrowed money from his late brother, so he technically owes Mama Montjoy money, but he's also borrowed money from Anderson. He might be the legate, the chief legate in Brussels, but he's got to be a spendthrift somehow, because he's not keeping his own money. He's borrowing money from people. Leave her to me a little while. Just leave her to me, said Lady Montjoy. I would not say anything hard to her, said her mother, pleading for her naughty child. Not too hard, but she must be made to understand. You see there have been misfortunes. As for Montjoy Scarborough, he's past hoping for. Oh, you think so? Altogether. When a man has disappeared, there's an end to him. There was Lord Baltiboy's younger son disappeared, and he turned out to be a zouave corporal in the French regiment. He joined the French Foreign Legion. They did get him out, of course, but then he went preaching in America. You may take it for granted that when a man has absolutely vanished from the clubs, he'll never be any good again as a marrying man. That's what happened to Mark at Book Time with Elvis. But there's his brother, who they say is to have the property. A very cold-blooded sort of young man who doesn't care a straw for his own family. Literally no one likes Augustus Scarborough. Even Septimus Jones is just hanging on him and doesn't actually like him personally. He had received very sternly the overtures for a loan from Sir Magnus. So Sir Magnus has gone to Augustus Scarborough as well to beg for money. And he, as I understand, has never declared himself in Florence's favor. Not yet, anyway. Our book is only halfway over. You can't count upon Augustus Scarborough. Not just count upon him. Whereas there's young Anderson, who is the most gentlemanlike young man I know already. It will have been such a turn of luck you coming here and catching him up. I don't know that it can be called a turn of luck. Florence has a very nice fortune of her own, and she wants to give it to this penniless reprobate. It is just one of these cases in which you must deal roundly with a girl. She has to be frightened, and that's the truth of it. After this, Lady Montjoy did succeed in getting Florence alone with herself in the morning room. When her mother told her that her aunt wished to see her, she answered first that she had no special wish to see her aunt. Her mother declared that in her aunt's house she was bound to go when her aunt sent for her. To this Florence demurred. She was, she thought, her aunt's guest, but by no means at her aunt's disposal. I think that's fair. You're living under your aunt's house. If she asks for you, you should go to her, but she doesn't have any claim on you other than that. But at last she obeyed her mother. She had resolved that she would obey her mother in all things but one, and therefore she went one morning to her aunt's chamber. But as she went, she was, in the first instance, caught by her uncle, and taken by him into a little private sanctum behind his official room. My dear, he said, just come in here for 2 minutes. I'm on my way up to my aunt. I know it, my dear. Lady Montjoy has been talking it all over with me. Upon my word, you can't do anything better than take young Anderson. I can't do that, Uncle Magnus. Why not? There's poor Montjoy Scarborough. He's gone astray. There is no question of my cousin. And Augustus is no better. You're guessing the wrong people, Uncle Magnus. There is no question of Augustus either. As to that other chap, he isn't any good. He isn't. You mean Harry Annesley? Yes, Harry Annesley, as you call him. He hasn't got a shilling to bless himself with, or wouldn't have if he was to marry you. But I have got something. But not enough for both of you, I'm afraid. That uncle of his has disinherited him. His uncle can't disinherit him. He's quite young enough to marry and have a family, and then Annesley will be disinherited. He has stopped his allowance anyway, and you mustn't think of him. He did something uncommonly unhandsome the other day, though I don't quite know what. Florence knows it all. She's heard it from the horse's mouth. A prejudiced account, but more than Sir Magnus knows. He did nothing unhandsome, Uncle Magnus. Of course a young lady will stand up for her lover, but you will really have to drop him. I'm not a hard sort of man, but this was something that the world will not stand. When he thought that a man had been murdered, he didn't say anything about it for fear they should tax him with it. And then he swore he'd never seen him. It was something of that sort. He never feared that anyone would suspect him. And now he's young Anderson, and now young Anderson has proposed. I should not have spoken else, but it is my duty to tell you about young Anderson. He's a gentleman all round. So is Mr. Annesley. And Uncle Magnus just bowls right on. He's not waiting to hear about Harry. And Anderson has gotten into no trouble at all. He does his duty here uncommonly well. I never had less trouble with any young fellow than I've had with him. No licking him into shape, or next to none. He has a very nice private income. You together would have plenty and could live here till you were settled on apartments. A pair of ponies would be just the thing for you to drive about in and support the British interests. You think of it, my dear, and you'll find that I'm right. Then Florence escaped from that room and went up to receive the much more severe lecture she was to have from her aunt. "Come in, my dear," said Lady Montjoy in her most austere voice. She had a voice which could assume austerity when she knew her power to be in the ascendant. As Florence entered the room, Miss Abbott left it by a door on the side. Miss Abbott is Lady Montjoy's Miss Tickle. She's just a constant hanger-on. "Take that chair, Florence. I want to have a few minutes' conversation with you." Then Florence sat down. When a young lady is thinking about being married, a great many things have to be taken into consideration. This seemed to be so much a matter of fact that Florence did not feel necessary to make any reply. "Of course, I am aware of your thinking about being married." "Oh, yes," said Florence. "But to whom?" "To Harry Annesley," said Florence, intending to imply that all the world knew that. "I hope not. I hope not. Indeed, I may say that it is quite out of the question. In the first place, he is a beggar." "He has begged from none," said Florence. "He is what the world calls a beggar, when a young man without a penny thinks of being married." "I am not a beggar, and what I've got will be his." "My dear, you're talking about what you don't understand. A young lady cannot give her money away in that manner. It will not be allowed. Neither your mother, nor Sir Magnus, nor I will permit it." Here Florence restrained herself, but drew herself up in her chair as though prepared to speak her mind if she were driven. Lady Montjoy would not permit it? She thought that if she would feel herself quite able to tell Lady Montjoy that she had neither the power nor the influence in the matter, but she determined to be silent a little longer. "In the first place, a gentleman who is a gentleman never attempts to marry a lady for her money. But when the lady has the money, she can express herself more clearly than when she could otherwise." And Harry's not, in his defense. I mean, I've been his harshest critic, but he's not marrying Florence for her money. "I don't quite understand what you mean by that, my dear. When Mr. Annesley proposed to me, he was acknowledged heir to his uncle's property. A trumpery affair at best of it. It would have sufficed for me, and then I accepted him." "That goes for nothing for a lady. Of course your acceptance was contingent on circumstances." "It was so on my regard. Having accepted him, and as my regard remains just as warm as ever, I certainly shall not go back because of anything his uncle may do. I only say this to explain that he is quite justified in his offer. It was not my small fortune that he came to me for." "I am not so sure of that. But if my money can be of any use to him, he's quite welcome to it. Sir Magnus spoke to me about a pair of ponies. I'd rather have him than a pair of ponies." "I'm coming to that just now. Here is Mr. Anderson." "Oh, yes, he's here." There was certainly a touch of impatience in the tone in which this was uttered. It was as though she had said that Mr. Anderson had so contrived that she could have no doubt whatever of his continued presence. Mr. Anderson had made himself so conspicuous as to be visible to her constantly. Lady Montjoy had intended at present to sing Mr. Anderson's praises, and felt this to be impertinent. "I don't know what you mean by that. Mr. Anderson has behaved himself quite like a gentleman, and you ought to be very proud of any token you may receive of his affection." "But I'm not bound to return it." "You are bound to think of it as those who are responsible for your actions tell you to do so." "Mamma, you mean." "I mean your uncle, Sir Magnus Mountjoy." She did not quite dare to say that she meant herself. "I suppose you will admit that Sir Magnus is a competent judge of young men's characters." "He may be a judge of Mr. Anderson, because Mr. Anderson is his clerk, and has also lent him money." There was something of an intention to depreciate in the word clerk. Florence had not thought much about Mr. Anderson's worth, nor, as far as she had seen of them, the duties generally performed in the British Embassy. It's not much duty. There are much duties to go on here. She was ignorant of the peculiar little niceties and intricacies which required the residence at Brussels of a gentleman with all the tact possessed by Sir Magnus. All he does is eat, and ride once a day, in full view of everybody, for the British interests. She did not know that while the mere international work of the office might be safely entrusted to Mr. Blow or Mr. Bunderdown, all those little niceties, that smiling and that frowning, that taking off of hats and only taking them off, and only half taking them off, that genial, easy manner, and that still hauteur, formed a peculiar branch of Sir Magnus himself, and, under Sir Magnus, of Mr. Anderson. She did not understand that even of that pair of ponies which was promised her were to be attached certain important functions which she was to control as the deputy of a great man's deputy. And how she had called the great man's deputy a clerk. This is Trollope, firmly tongue-in-cheek, but very effectively sarcastic about the airs taken on by embassies that do basically nothing. "Mr. Anderson is no such thing," said Lady Montjoy. "He's young man, then, or private secretary, only somebody else is that." "You are very impertinent and very ungrateful. Mr. Anderson is second secretary of the legation. There is no officer attached to our establishment of more importance. I believe you say it on purpose to anger me. And then you compare this gentleman to Mr. Annesley, a man to whom no one will speak. I will speak to him. Had Harry heard her say that, he ought to have been a happy man in spite of his trouble. You? What good can you do him? Florence nodded her head, almost imperceptibly, but still there was a nod, signifying more than she could possibly say. She thought that she could do him a world of good if she were near him, and some good, too, though she were far away. If she were with him, she could hang on to his arm, or perhaps at some future time round his neck, and tell him that she would be true to him through all the others may turn away. And she could be just as true where she was, though she could not comfort him by telling him so with her own words. Then it was that she resolved upon writing that letter, the letter that we've read. He should already have what little comfort she might administer in his absence. Now listen to me, Florence. He is a thorough reprobate. I will not hear him so called. He is no reprobate. He has behaved in such a way that all England is crying about him. He has done that which will never allow any gentleman to speak to him again. Then there will be no need that a lady should do so. But it is not true. You put your knowledge of character against that of Sir Magnus. Sir Magnus does not know the gentleman. I do. What's the good of talking of it, Aunt? Harry Annesley has my word, and nothing on earth shall induce me to go back on it. Even were he what you say, I would still be true to him. You would? Very important to know for Florence. And also another tiny little timber of doubt. She is declaring that even if he had done everything that the world said that he did, which we know he actually did, she would still be true to him. Certainly I would. I could not willingly begin to love a man whom I knew to be base, but when I had loved him, I would not turn because of his baseness. I couldn't do it. It would be great, a terrible misfortune, but it would have to be borne. But here, I know all the story to which you allude. I know it too. I am quite sure that the baseness has not been on his side. In defense of my name, he has been silent. He might have spoken out if he had known all the truth then. I was as much his own then as I am now. One of these days, I suppose I shall be more so. You mean to marry him, then? Most certainly I do, or I will never be married. And as he is poor now, and I must have my own money when I am 24, I shall have to wait until then. Will your mother's word go for nothing with you? Poor Mamma. I do believe that Mamma is very unhappy because she makes me unhappy. What may take place between me and Mamma, I am not bound, I think, to tell you. We shall be away soon, and I shall be left to Mamma alone. And Mamma would be left alone to her daughter, Lady Montjoy thought. The visit must be prolonged, so at last Mr. Anderson should be enabled to prevail. She's worried that if they get away too soon, Florence will change her mother's mind. And Mamma, the visit had been originally intended for a month, but it was now prolonged indefinitely. After that conversation between Lady Montjoy and her niece, 2 or 3 things happened, all bearing upon our story. Oh, hey, that's great, Tony, but it'd be nice if you'd given us the end of this conversation. It's in full flower when you cut it off. Florence at once wrote her letter. If things were going badly in England with Harry Annesley, Harry should at least have the comfort of knowing what her feelings were. If there might be comfort in that for him, Perhaps, after all, he won't mind what I say, she thought to herself, but only pretended to think it, and at once flatly contradicted her own perhaps. Then she told him most emphatically not to reply. It was very important that she should write. He was to receive her letter, and there must be an end of it. She was quite sure that he would understand her. He would not subject her to the trouble of having to tell her own people that she was maintaining a correspondence, for it would amount to that. But still, when the time came for the answer, she had not counted it up to the hour, and when Sir Magnus sent for her and handed her the letter, having discussed the question with her mother, she fully expected it, and felt properly grateful to her uncle. She wanted a little comfort, too, and when she had read the letter, she knew that she had received it. Because Harry's letter, his response, is very comforting. They're love letters. There had been a few words spoken between the 2 elder ladies after the interview between Florence and Lady Montjoy. She is a most self-willed young woman, said Lady Montjoy. Well, of course she loves her lover, said Mrs. Montjoy, and desirous of making some excuse for her own daughter. The girl was very troublesome, but was not the less her daughter. I don't know any of them that don't, who are worth anything. If you regard it in that light, Sarah, she shall get the better of you. If she marries him, she will be lost. That is the way you have to look at it. It is her future happiness you must think of, the respectability. She is a headstrong young woman and has to be treated accordingly. Well, what would you do? I would be very severe. But what am I to do? I can't beat her. I can't lock her up in a room. Then you mean to give it up? No, I don't. You shouldn't be so cross with me, said poor Mrs. Mountjoy. When it had reached this, the two ladies had become intimate. I don't mean to give it all up, but what am I to do? Remain here for the next month, and worry her. Let Mr. Anderson have his chance with her. When she finds that everything will smile upon her if she accepts him, and that her life will be made a burden if she still sticks to Harry Annesley, she'll come round, if she be like other girls. Of course, a girl can't be made to marry a man, but there are ways and means. How awful that her mother would agree to this. But by this, Lady Mountjoy meant that the utmost cruelty should be used, which would be compatible with a good breakfast, dinner, and bedroom. Now, Mrs. Mountjoy knew herself to be incapable of this, and knew also, or thought she knew, that it would not be efficacious. So not only does Mamma Mountjoy not know that she can't possibly be this cruel to her daughter on her own, but she knows it won't work. You stay here, up to Christmas, if you like it, said Sir Magnus to his sister-in-law. She can't but see Anderson every day, and that goes a long way. She's, of course, put on a resolute air as well as she can. They all know how to do that. Do you be resolute in return. The deuce in it is if we can't have our way with her among us. When you talk of ill usage, nobody wants you to put her in chains. There are different ways of killing a cat. You get friends to write to you from England about young Annesley, and I'll do the same. The truth, of course, I mean. The way they're doing this, just all of them together. Nothing can be worse than the truth, said Mrs. Mountjoy, shaking her head sorrowfully. They don't know the truth. Especially don't know all the later stuff that we know. And they're certainly not turning any blame on Augustus Scarborough, who also did not tell the police that Mountjoy Scarborough was alive and well. Just so, said Sir Magnus, who was not at all sorrowful to hear so bad an account of the favoured suitor. Then we'll read her letters. She can't help hearing them. Just the true facts, you know. That's fair. Nobody can call that cruel. And then, when she breaks down and comes to our call, we'll all be as soft as mother's milk to her. I shall see her going about the boulevards in a pair of ponies yet. Mrs. Mountjoy felt that when Sir Magnus spoke of Florence coming to his call, he did not know her daughter. But she had nothing better to do than obey Sir Magnus. She could refuse to obey him. She could leave. They have travelling money. They could go somewhere else. She doesn't have to go back to England and Harry Annesley. Therefore, she resolved to stay at Brussels for another period of 6 weeks, and told Florence that she was so resolved. Just at present, Brussels and Cheltenham would be all the same to Florence. It will be a dreadful bore having them so long, said poor Lady Mountjoy piteously to her husband, for in the presence of Sir Magnus she was by no means the valiant woman that she was with some of her friends. You find everything a bore. What's the trouble? What am I to do with them? Take them about in the carriage. Lord bless my soul, what have you got a carriage for? Then, with Miss Abbott, there's never room for anyone else. Leave Miss Abbott at home, then. What's the good of talking to me about Miss Abbott? I suppose it doesn't matter to you that who my brother's daughter marries? Lady Mountjoy did not think it did matter much, but she declared that she had already evinced the most tender solicitude. Then stick to it. The girl doesn't want to go out every day. Leave her alone when Anderson can get at her. He's always out riding with you. No, he's not. Not always. And leave Miss Abbott at home. Then there'll be room for 2 others. Don't make difficulties. Anderson will expect that I shall do something for him, of course. Because of the money, said Lady Mountjoy, whispering, because he owes Anderson money. And I've got to do something for her, too. Now, there was a spice of honesty about Sir Magnus. He knew that he could not at once pay back these sums. He was bound to make it up in some other way. The debts would be left the same, but that would remain with Providence. He owes both. He owes Mamma Mountjoy. She's not thinking of it. We're told she didn't think of it when she asked for a visit. And he owes Mr. Anderson, who probably has a very light whip hand with his boss. Then came Harry's letter, and there was a deep consultation. It was known to have come from Harry by the Buntington postmark. Mrs. Mountjoy proposed to consult Lady Mountjoy, but to that Sir Magnus would not agree. She'd take her skin off her if she could now, but that she's angered, said the lady's husband, who no doubt knew the lady well. Of course she'll learn that the letter has been written, and then she'll throw it in our teeth. She wouldn't believe that it had gone astray in coming here. We should give her a sort of whip hand over us. So it was decided that Florence should have her letter. They decided amongst themselves to show it to her. And Trollope can't help but mention that they identify the source of the letter by its postmark. Because one of the many reasons, not just a dramatist and a failed stagecraft guy, one of the many reasons why he's so good at letters and all things postal is because it was his job. It was his profession in life. So that is the chapter where we see the machinations of the whole family are against Flomo. Uh, they want to separate her from Harry Ainsley. They've got the advantage not only of the home field but of distance from him. They've got a likely suitor in the wings. It's all worked for, and they have pretty much decided, with her mother's agreement, to be cruel to her, to be horrible to her until she starts to accept Mr. Anderson, and then they'll all be nice to her. Terrible. Terrible. So we'll move on to the next chapter next time, and I'll see you all then. Thank you, BookTube.